We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Bezam and Bezam Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesubos Daf 72b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara asked, is it considered Das Yehudis for a woman to cover her hair, or is it something that's Midoraisa? And the Gemara now explains that on a Doraisa level, Kalsa Shapir Dami. She can even use just a basket to cover her hair. Rashi over here says, Kalsa, Sal Sheyesh Lam Mata Beis Kiva Laholma Barosho. It was like this basket that they would put on their heads. It had an area you could fit it on your head. And then they would put some items at the top of the basket. They would walk around with this basket on their head. So that's okay on a Doraisa level. That's actually enough. Das Yehudis, but if you're going to follow Das Yehudis, just Jewish custom, so Afilo Kalsa Nami Yasser, so a Kalsa alone, that would be Yasser. It has to be a more significant head covering. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yasi says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Kalsa ein ba mishum perua rosh. If she's wearing the kalsa, that's not considered having uncovered head. And so the Gemara continues, Have ba Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera asked on this statement of Rabbi Yochanan, how could you say that the basket alone is enough to be considered covering her head? Heicha, what are we talking about? Ilema b'shuk, if we're talking about in the marketplace. Das Yehudasi, we just said that the Jewish custom is to do more than the kalsa, to do more than the basket. V'yela b'chatzar, rather you'll say we're talking about in the privacy of her own chutzner, and that's where she needs to wear a basket. If that's the case, you're not going to leave any place for a daughter of Avram Avinu to be with her husband. In other words, you're saying even in private to such an extreme that she has to cover her hair. So Amar Abaya v'Yitemer Rav Kahana, Abaya said, and some say Rav Kahana said, Mechotzer l'chotzer v'derech mavoi. What we're talking about is, let's say she's going from one chotzer to another chotzer through a mavoi. So in that situation, she shouldn't have it totally uncovered, but a basket would be enough. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, V'tava b'shuk, another thing that would be inappropriate. Let's say she's spinning threads in the marketplace and talking to the people over there, to the men over there. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, B'maraz rosel livnei adam. What she's doing inappropriate is she's showing off her arms to the people over there. Rav Chisda Amar Avimai. Rav Chisda says that Avimai says, B'tava vered keneged panah. The case over here actually is she's spinning the wool in a way where she's doing it by the area, by her private area. That's where she's holding the threads, and that's an inappropriate fashion of conducting herself. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Umidaberesim koladim. Let's say she's speaking with everybody over there. That's also a reason where he can divorce her without a ksuba. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, B'masachek esim bachrim. The case is she's being lighthearted together with the young men over there. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba Bar Barchana. Rabba Bar Barchana said, Zim nechada hava kozilna b'asrei d'Rav Ukva. One time I was going behind Rav Ukva. Chazisi lahi arvaya d'hava yosva kashadya pilcha v'tava vered keneged paneh. And I saw this Arab woman, and she was sitting in this inappropriate fashion, spinning this wool, again by her private area. And Rabba Bar Barchana continues, Kaven de Chazisina, when she saw us, Psikte lepilcha shadise, she tore her spindle and she threw it down. Amrali, and she said to me, Ulam, young man, Havli pelach, give me the spindle. And the Gemara says, Amar Bar Rav Ukva milsa. So Rav Ukva, when he saw what happened, he said something about her. And the Gemara says, My Amar Bar, what did he say about her? Ravina Amar Tava Beshuk. Ravina said that he said, this is the example the Mishnah is talking about of the woman who spins in the marketplace. Amar Bar, that's what he said about her. Rabbanan Amri, the Rabbanan say, Midaberesim kol adam Amar Bar. He called her a midaberesim kol adam, which was the other phrase in the Mishnah, again, that was referring to this woman who's acting inappropriately in the marketplace. And the Gemara continues, Abishol Omer Afa Mekalelas Yolda B'fanav. Abishol said in the Mishnah that let's say she curses his parents in front of him, that's another reason that she can be divorced without the ksuba. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Mekalelas Yolida B'fnei Molida. It can be talking about a case where she curses his parents in front of his children. V'simonech, and the way to remember this, the simon for this, Ephraim and Menashe, Keruven v'Shimon Yuli. Ephraim and Menashe, they are like Reuven and Shimon to me, meaning grandchildren. Can even be like children, and therefore, if she says something bad about his parents, not only in front of him but in front of his children, that's the same issue. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabba. Rabba says, D'amrle. She says to him, Nechle Arya l'Saba biape b'rei. She says, let a lion eat grandfather, and she says that in front of his son. That would be an example of this kind of inappropriate behavior. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Tarfon Omer Afa Kolonis. Rabbi Tarfon says also if she's excessively loud, that's also a reason to divorce her without the ksuba. And the Gemara says, my Kolonis, what exactly is meant over here by Kolonis? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, B'mashmas kola aliske tashmish. It means that she raises her voice about things that are private matters, things having to do with relations. She's loud about those things. And the Gemara continues, B'masnisatan, and the Brisa was taught, B'mishameshes b'chotzer zu v'nishma kola b'chotzer acher. Acheres. She's in one Chatzar, she's having relations in one Chatzar, and she can be heard in another Chatzar. And the Gemara says, V'nisni agabe mumen b'masnisin, but the Gemara now assumes that the reason why she's so loud when she's having relations is because it pains her, because she has some kind of blemish. There's something medical. There's a medical issue that she has. But if that's the case, the Gemara says, why don't we put that in the Mishnah when we're going to talk about the various blemishes? And so the Gemara says, you're right, that's where it should have been listed if that was the case. Rather go back to the first answer and reject the second answer. And the Gemara continues at the Mishnah, let's say a person has Kedushin with a woman on the condition that there are no oaths upon her, there's no restrictions, no Nedarim. And then it turns out she does have Nedarim upon her. So that's not a Kedushin at all, there's no need even for a divorce, it's not a Kedushin in the first place. Kansa Stam, now let's say he marries her Stam, and then it turns out they're Nedarim, so there was no condition that she can't have Nedarim, but it was presumed that she didn't have Nedarim. So then, Ksuba, she has to be divorced, the marriage is still good, but she doesn't receive the Ksuba. Similarly, the Mishnah says, if he marries her on the condition that she has no blemishes, and it turns out she has blemishes, the Kedushin is not a Kedushin at all. Kansa Stam, if he marries her Stam, no specific condition that she doesn't have mumin, and then it comes out that she has mumin, she has blemishes, in that case she is divorced without a Ksuba. And the Mishnah comments, all of the blemishes that disqualify a Kohen, those are the same blemishes we're talking about over here that can disqualify a wife. And the Gemara says, this Mishnah over here is identical. We have the exact same Mishnah in Kiddushin about being Mekadesh, a woman on the condition she doesn't have these various restrictions upon her. Why do we have the Mishnah twice? And so the Gemara answers, here we're listing it because of the halacha relevant to Ksuba, when she can be divorced without a Ksuba. So Tana Kiddushin atu Ksubas, and we list the case of Kiddushin because of the halacha by Ksuba. And Hasam over there, it's just the opposite. Kiddushin is Tzrichalei. There we're listing it because it's relevant to Kiddushin. And Tana Ksubas atu Kiddushin, we list the Ksuba halacha once we're already listing the Kiddushin halacha. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok, Be'elu Nedarim Amru. We're talking about the following Nedarim. Let's say, what kinds of Nedarim are considered Nedarim that really are a problem for her to have? For example, Shelo Tochal Basar v'Shelo Tishtei Yayin. Let's say she's not going to eat meat, she's not going to drink wine. V'Shelo Tiskashet bevigdei tzivonim. Or let's say she says she's not going to adorn herself with these colored garments. Those are already extreme kinds of Nedarim that can pose problems. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Nami Hachu, we have a brisa like this as well. Be'elu Nedarim Amru. We're talking about the following kinds of oaths. Dvarim sheyesh ban inoi nefesh. We're talking about things that they cause a pain for the soul. They're painful kinds of Nedarim. Shelo tochal basar, v'shelo tishtei yayin. She won't eat meat, she won't drink wine. V'shelo tiskashet bevigdei tzivonim. She won't adorn herself with the colored garments. Have bar Rav Papa. Now Rav Papa asked on this, when we're saying we're only talking about these kinds of Nedarim, what exactly do we mean? Ahaya, in which case in the Mishnah are we talking about? We had two cases in the Mishnah. One was when there's a condition that there be no Nedarim, and the other one was when he marries her Stam and she happens to have Nedarim. The Gemara says, Ilei ma'aresh. If we're talking about the first part of the Mishnah where there was a condition she should have no Nedarim, but Kevan dekakapid, but if he's strict and he's saying no Nedarim at all, afilu kol milinami, then any kind of neder should be a problem. If he married her on a condition of no Nedarim, why would it only be these Nedarim? Ella Seifa, rather it must be this entire discussion is only going on the Seifa on the end case of the Mishnah, meaning when he marries her Stam, only these Nedarim are going to pose a problem. Rav Ashi Amar, but Rav Ashi says, no, Liolam HaReisha, we are going on the Reisha. In the case when he marries her on condition, there are no Nedarim, but it doesn't mean all kinds of Nedarim. Omidi dekavti bo inshi have a kapeda. If it's something that other people are normally makbid about, that's considered something to be makbid about. But midi de lo kapti bo inshi, but something that people are not so concerned about, lo have a kapeda. The fact that he's concerned about it is not considered a real concern. It really only applies to these particular Nedarim. And the Gemara continues, Itmar, we have the following machlokas amoroim. Kitshal tanai v'kinsa stam. What happens if when he makes the Kiddushin, when they have the betrothal, there's a condition there. But at the time of the marriage, he just does it stam, he doesn't have any condition anymore. So Rav Amar tzricha hemenu get. Rav says in that case, that's going to be considered a real marriage, even though, let's say, she didn't fulfill the condition, so to speak. It doesn't matter, because at the time of the marriage, that condition was no longer. He didn't have the condition, he married her stam, and therefore the marriage is good, and she's going to require a get. Ushmuel amar eina tzricha himenu get, and Shmuel says no, she doesn't require a get because at the end of the day the kiddushin was on condition. The condition was not fulfilled. It's not a kiddushin in the first place. The fact that there was a marriage stam does not make a difference. And the Gemara continues. Amar Abaya says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph.